Welcome back here to Team Friday here on OCR FM, your number one station for local footy and local sports as well. It's a big week on Monday, well, a big weekend, but it's a big day on Monday, the Super Bowl. It's usually on a Sunday afternoon, but it's on a Sunday night over in the States. Monday morning for us, but on the line now, we're talking to a fella that he's played in the Super Bowl. We know him as a great AFL player, but in the last few years, he's become a great NFL player. Benny Graham, thanks for joining us today, mate.
Good afternoon, Max. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Once again, thanks very much for speaking to us on short notice, mate. Super Bowl, you played in one. It must bring back some great memories, with the Super Bowl coming up on Monday.
Great memory. Super Bowl 43, we were that close.
Yeah.
We had the lead with a minute to go, but unfortunately that catch by Santonio Holmes and Ben Roethlisberger will play on my mind. But no, it's still such a privilege to be the first Australian to play in a Super Bowl. So this time of the year, with a Super Bowl on Monday, it does bring back some fantastic memories, and I know exactly what the players will be going through, given that there's 2 weeks leading into the Super Bowl without playing a game. But they need those 2 weeks because so much has to go in, not only from a preparation standpoint, but the distractions involved with media day and everything that goes with it. So whichever way you look at it, it's a fantastic event.
What, in your view, what's the bigger build-up? You know, it's a pretty big week here on AFL Grand Final week. You know, the two sides are always in the media, the parade and all that. 2 weeks in the NFL media buzz and all that sort of stuff. Which is the bigger build-up?
Oh, the Super Bowl, without a doubt.
Yep.
I never want to disrespect the AFL and the Grand Final, and having played in a Grand Final also, it's obviously the pinnacle of both sports and what we strive for as a team to play in and to win. But the Super Bowl, given that it's played in a country of over 300 million people and watched by millions and hundreds of millions around the world, it is just a showcase, and they do it in such a grand fashion that it's not only an event for the players, but for the viewing audience and for the people there. It's a true spectacle. So if you're comparing events, the Super Bowl is on a much larger scale.
What was your first reactions when you walked onto that ground when you played in that Super Bowl 43, Ben? Was it? I guess, as you said, you played in an AFL Grand Final, but what was the feelings, the emotions, and all that as you stepped on that field?
Well, that 2008 was such a dramatic year for us as a family. I got cut from the Jets twice earlier in the year.
Right,
played for the Saints in London, and then latched onto the Cardinals week 13. So I only had 4 weeks on the team leading into the playoffs. So I was just trying to keep my head down and do a good job, earn my stripes. So really, I became felt like I became fully entrenched in a team on the first playoff win. And because we came in as underdogs, no one expected us to win. So when we got to the NFC Championship game and Sav was playing for the Philadelphia Eagles, I didn't understand the magnitude of actually winning the NFC Championship game, which is what the 49ers did last week and the Ravens did in the AFC. That was a massive event in itself because traditionally they were 2 separate leagues would come together to play off in the Super Bowl. But leading in, what happened with me is that on media day they give 10 players a booth, which they present to the media, and it was the first time ever that the punter had been given his own booth, and I hadn't really only been on the Cardinals for 7 weeks leading into it, so all my teammates wondered what the bloody hell was going on, but it created such a media storm, I guess, back in Australia, and the Americans were so intrigued by an Australian playing in the Super Bowl that it created that extra attention. But the day itself, being in the NFL at that point for 4 years, you had the ability to switch on when you needed to be, when it was game time, but when it wasn't, in the lead up and even at halftime, I spent most of my halftime of the Super Bowl out on the field watching Bruce Springsteen play in his concert. So It's just, once it came down to it, you treated it just another game. You had a job to do. You prepared yourself so that when you were called upon, that you gave a good account of yourself. But it's a difficult thing though to not get wrapped up in the whole event in itself. But unfortunately, we didn't win the game, but that it was just a fantastic event.
It was a great moment, yeah. As you said, the championship before the Super Bowl when you did play against South Rocker, it was just a great sort of moment for Australian sport, and it would have been a fantastic moment to I guess cherish as well, because it was just a rare occasion having two ex-AFL greats, yourself and South Rocker playing in that game, and one of them had to win, and as all the Geelong supporters were pretty proud that you won.
Yeah, well, it was. Leading into that game, Sav and I, we speak regularly anyway,
Yep.
but it was great for our families too, knowing that one of us was going to be playing in the Super Bowl, and I know that I would have been proud as punch if it was Sav, and he was proud as punch that it was me that was representing Australia in the Super Bowl. And, I'd asked before the game if I was allowed to wear an Australian flag sticker on the back of my helmet, but unfortunately that didn't fly with the NFL. But it was, and again, that year, the Super Bowl was so far off my radar. My number one goal was to get back on a team,
Yep.
but actually get back on a team that was going towards a playoff run was, was super exciting. And to be a part of that team then for the next couple of years and having some good success there also. But there's just the AFL grants. The AFL is hard enough to win in itself, but when you double the amount of teams, and it's even harder again. So it was certainly very prestigious and something that I'll hold close for as long as I live.
Now, Ben, I blame you for my heartache in Barracan for the New York Jets, mate. I was a big Geelong fan, and when you went over, I decided to, follow NFL a bit, and I've now really bleed New York Jets. Just tell us a little bit of your time over there, because New York is one of the places I'd love to go and visit. How was it actually living, in New York, and tell us a bit about the city as well.
Yes, it was, to move from Geelong to New York was a big step, but looking back, it was the best thing that we were very lucky that it worked out that way, because we were immersed right into a big city, into a big sporting state, and we had our struggles early transitioning the family, but it was fantastic. The Australian, the number of Australians that live in New York and the number of Australians that travel through really connected us to New York, and we enjoyed having people stay with us, and we have family friends now for life. We really enjoyed our time in New York. We didn't actually live in Manhattan because the facility was about 20 miles east on Long Island, which then moved to their new facility in New Jersey. But I couldn't thank the New York Jets enough for giving me the opportunity. I was lucky enough to play in one playoff game in the time there, something that the Jets have been starved a little bit of, especially when the Giants have been so successful of late. But fantastic organisation, and I really enjoyed my time there.
Just briefly, just before we get into a Super Bowl preview, I just want to know the moment of when, in your AFL career, Ben, when you sort of realised that, look, I can have a crack at this NFL game. Whenabouts was it? Because I think a lot of us were a little bit shocked when you did make up that decision at the end of 2004. You were playing some pretty good football at the time, and you did the transition. We all knew it was probably going to happen, but whenabouts in your career did you sort of think, I could play NFL, have a crack at it?
Well, it could have been as early as 1992 when Darren Bennett beat me in the longest kick competition and used his tickets to LA to embark on his career. So ever since then, I followed him. I won that competition the following year and just used the tickets for a bit of a trip around the States. But it wasn't until 1997 when Scouts actually came out to work me out and offered me a contract. And I always said that I was going to play out my AFL career before I looked at that next opportunity, and I felt like the time was right at the end of 2004 to explore it, and I had enough belief in my ability and an offer from the Jets that I didn't want to turn down because I didn't know if I was going to get that opportunity again. So I was at the stage in my AFL career where I knew it was coming to the end, and I appreciate that I could have played another year, but I always said that for someone to guarantee me to have a great year and stay injury-free and for us to win the flag, well then, of course I would have stayed, but no one could guarantee me that.
Yeah, exactly.
I was very proud of my career and been able to retire on my own terms and gave my heart and soul to the Geelong Football Club for the time that I played, and so proud of the boys and what they've done since. So I certainly have no regrets about making the decision, and it was part of my motivation, definitely, to begin with, to actually make it in the NFL, knowing that I may have had another year left to play. But the last 8 years living and breathing the NFL and in such an elite sporting environment, some of the experiences I've had as a family has helped shape the person I am today.
Well, Ben, we'll get into the big game on Monday. Well, that's our time. It's Sunday night over in the States. The Ravens taking on the 49ers. It's, I guess, both sides were underdogs last week or the week before, and they got up in their games. Now they face off in the Super Bowl. Who do you like, Benny, and who's your tip for the MVP?
Yeah, look, it should be a great game. There's storylines coming out. Obviously, Ray Lewis playing his last game,
yep.
And John and Jim Harbaugh coaching against each other. They both actually lost the AFC and NFC Championship game last year, leading into the Super Bowl. So now they've gone back to the drawing board and come up trumps. So I thought that the Denver Broncos were the best team in the AFC. And I thought the 49ers were the best team in the NFC. So my pick is the 49ers. They've got a fantastic defense. They've made the call on Colin Kaepernick, and Kaepernick and Frank Gore, I think, they'll establish the running game and it'll allow Kaepernick to have that X factor and run all over the top of him. So 49ers, I think, will be too strong on both sides of the ball, and Colin Kaepernick might be an easy pick, but I think that he's had a sensational year in the last couple of weeks in high-pressure playoff games. Being a second-year player, he's had an exceptional few games. So I think that their defence will be able to cause a few turnovers from the Baltimore side of the ball, and I'm picking them by a touchdown.
Yeah, hopefully it's a close one, and we'll be all watching. It should be an absolute great. Just one question to finish off with, Ben. Last week it was the Pro Bowl. As we mentioned before, 2-week gap between, I guess, the prelim finals and the grand final in the AFL talk. I've always thought that the AFL should maybe go towards that sort of path and have a 2-week gap between the prelims and the grand final, and on that middle week have an all-star event. What are your thoughts on that? Do you reckon that could be a good option?
Yeah, I think that is a good option. Traditionally, they played the Pro Bowl a week after the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They experimented it with having the Pro Bowl in the same city as the Super Bowl. This year is different again, where they've still played in Hawaii, but in that week before the Super Bowl. I think there is still room for not so much state of origin, but an all-star type setup to acknowledge the players that have had exceptional years. The trouble is the AFL season is much longer than the NFL season.
Yeah.
But still, it recognises the great performances by the players in the NFL, and I know that if there's a tie in an NFL game, they'll go to extra time and get a result on the given day. So I guess the worry would be in the AFL, given the current situation, they'd have to play another game a week later, which wouldn't be ideal. So I guess it's a topic of discussion, but they'd have my backing because I know how well it works in the NFL.
Yeah, I thought you can also do like the NBA do and have the biggest goal kick competition. Something that might interest your eye as well. It'd be great to see a Trent McKenzie from the Gold Coast trying to see really how long he can kick. He seems to be able to get the old 75-metre kicks. But, one of those competitions, a specky competition, similar like that, just something to bring the fans in for an extra week for the AFL season before the cricket starts off.
Yeah, they're all good ideas, mate. I hope you're writing it all down and sending in a proposal to the AFL. It might be add to the halftime entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. Ben, thanks very much for joining us today, mate. You'll be looking forward to Monday. And what are your plans for this year, mate? I heard whispers that you're at the Western Bulldogs this year, just doing a bit of coaching down there.
I am. I've not so much coaching. I'm, football operations role. So it's something that I've had my eye on to get back into the AFL, and I've been there now for over a month and really enjoying my time there, and it's just great to be back in Australia, settling the family back here and getting on with life. So it's been a good opportunity and a challenge, but
you're pretty close to home too there, because you got Cam Mooney, Matthew Scarlett and Bren McCartney all there. It's similar to your 2002 side almost.
Yeah, Stephen King's there also.
Yeah, and Kingy, yeah, that's right. Forgot about him.
It's a good program we've got going on down there at the moment. A good young developing group. So it's exciting times, but it's just great to get back into football in some capacity.
Well, Ben, once again, thanks again for talking to us today, and all the best for this season, mate.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
That was Ben Graham, former Geelong superstar and also NFL star as well. You're listening to Team Friday here on OCR FM.